Welcome to this edition of the Hoel Roofing and Remodeling Podcast. Today, a good friend of mine is a special guest, Evan Devine. I'm going to let him introduce himself, his lovely wife, beautiful children, and they've got a couple businesses that they run. So just in here to chat business and learn something from you today, Evan. How are you, brother?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good. Go ahead, introduce your family.
My name is Evan Devine, and my wife is Lori. We have 3 kids. Caroline, she's 5, twin boys, Everett and Flynn, they're 2, and 10-month-old Milo. You start to forget how old they are once you get
So you got 4 kids, Evan.
How many did I say?
You just said 3.
I forget that, too, and I forget where they're at, and I haven't left them in the back of the seat yet, but just give it time.
Well, when you're like 3 kids, I'm like, I swear they had another kid.
Oh, yeah.
And like the crazy thing is like our lives are so busy. Emily ran into some friends the other day and the wife had like her niece or nephew and she called me. She's like, did they have another kid? I'm like, I don't think so. Why? She's like, oh, she had a baby and it was her niece or nephew. So that's hilarious.
Yeah, you do forget. But yeah, we got a couple businesses, Divine Heritage Barns, which I take down barns and sell barnwood. I've kind of been transitioning that to rebuilding barns. I've got a couple frames that are going to go up this year. And then we have the wedding business, which is another barn. Our entire life kind of revolves around barns. I don't know how we got that way, but it's about all I talk about these days. So yeah, we got the wedding barn. We host weddings there from usually April through the first weekend in November. So that's kind of Lori's, I guess, her business. She does all the contracts and meeting with clients and stuff like that, and then I do a lot of the day of stuff, and then preparing, getting ready for the weddings, and then basically all the maintenance. And it's too many things for me to do. So
all right, so kids, youngest is 10 months, and then your oldest just turned 5.
Right, and then the boys, Everett and Flynn, turn 3 in April.
Okay, because Caroline and Maya Riley is what, 2 days apart?
2 days, yeah.
Okay. So I will remember Caroline's age, and that's really about all. Well, and it's like that's another thing I've noticed. Like I can remember that, but there's no way I can remember how old the twins are.
I forget most of the time,
and that's what I tell people. And then like I'm trying to keep track of friends, and then like this year we've got 2 weddings inside the business. 2 people that work for us, they're not getting married. They're getting married. So, yeah. So the barn, I want to just kind of talk about the barn venue, kind of tell that story a little bit. Cause I know that property has been in Lori's family for a long time.
Yeah.
And
it was her grandpa's, her grandpa's cousin was the one that owned it before us. Yeah. And then we got married there in 2015. It wasn't a venue at the time, just we wanted to do it, and they allowed us to do that. And then 3 weeks later, the owner, Phil, he had passed away, and they were living in Oklahoma most of the time to be around the grandkids. So Ruthie moved out there, and then whenever I started the barn business, I was taking care of the property in exchange for storing stuff in the buildings. And then we were just really looking we wanted that farm. Mm-hmm. We just loved it. And we wanted to restore it and everything. And I just asked if we could buy it, and they were happy to keep it kind of within the family.
Right.
And so here we are, 6 years later, and I've done a lot of work to the place, but it feels like I've got so much more to do. So
well, and one thing that I want to talk about is like I feel like you guys kind of started the remodeling of the barn about the time that me and Emily started the roofing and siding business. And I always admired you because you were putting in hours and hours and hours. And I mean, at the beginning, what was it, 2 years before you had your first wedding?
Let's see. I really hit the renovations hard in 2019, that fall after harvest. Okay. And then COVID hit, which actually worked out really well for us because we were hoping to be up and running by the time COVID hit. Obviously we didn't know that was coming, but it kind of knocked out everyone. Yep. So we weren't really missing out on any weddings, and we didn't have to reschedule or anything. And then we had 3 weddings, the fall of 2020, and that was good, like a warm up to see what we needed to change. And then I made changes over the winter, and then 21 was our first big year, which we had Everett and Flynn were born right at the beginning of wedding season. And that pretty much sucked because we didn't have staff really.
Right.
We had a couple people that were helping us out a little bit, but I was doing all the cleaning, and between, the kids and the barn weddings and cleaning and all that, I just felt like I was getting nothing done. Like I was really frustrated and just exhausted. But now we have staff that do a lot of the day of stuff, and it's just helped. Once we got all of our systems in place, it helped tremendously.
Well, and I mean, we really kind of started the entrepreneur journey together, and I always admired you because I would go out and sell a job, and we would perform the job in the next week or two, and like I could see like my finished product, and I'm like, you're working 12, 15, 18 months, before you even get to see, that one. And then you've got to even be a better salesman because your freaking barn isn't done and you're trying to sell this bride on faith
that was the hard part.
That it'll be done.
It looked like total shit. We had people coming in there, and Lori was trying to give tours, and saying like, it's not really going to look like this. And it was hard for her to do that, and she was able to book some weddings doing that. Right. So credit to her. But
so she's the better salesman. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah. No, I actually did do one wedding tour. She got sick a couple summers ago, and I did a tour, and those people booked. So I'm 100%.
But yeah, I mean, it's just as a business owner, like to see that vision, like we have it, and you got to relay it to. I mean, you guys got to relay it to brides, and I don't envy you at all on that because that's the most important day for most women in their life. So
yeah, but honestly though, I think COVID really helped us a lot.
Right.
Most people can't say that,
yep.
But we. People were just trying to find a place to get married. And because of that, we booked up really quick for the first couple of years. I mean, things were really filling up well, and they kind of had to take a gamble a little bit, especially that first year because things weren't done. But, it was a benefit to us.
So just so everybody knows, they're located just west of Greenfield, Indiana.
Right, yep.
So, if you're looking to get married, I mean, I know there's not too many people listening to the podcast that are looking to get married, but, if they are, we'll connect you with Lori. So, I mean, it's funny that we talk about not knowing kids' age or stuff because there was somebody I knew looking to get married, and you guys had Milo, is your youngest one? And I had called your wife. It was the day after she had the kid.
Yeah, we were in the hospital.
Yeah, you answered the phone to try to be funny. And I'm like, I swear I called Lori. And I was like, what are you doing? We're in the hospital. We just had a kid yesterday.
Yeah, it's funny. After you have two at once, like having one more, it's easy. He's actually been probably the hardest baby as far as being needy and all, but it's so easy after the twins. So. Yeah, it's been a good year, and it as unproductive as I look back on the past 10 months, I've still been pretty productive. Right. So, just figuring out how to. Me and Lori work really well as a team, and I can tell whenever she needs a break, and she can tell when I need a break, and we can kind of step in and help each other out. But I'd say that's probably the key to our businesses is just working so well together.
Well, and I mean, and that is I always say it's the biggest blessing that me and Emily have, and sometimes the biggest curse also, just because like you are working together, and they're trying to be mom too. Unfortunately, our youngest is 5, your oldest is 5, so we had a couple of ours off to school every day, so that kind of. But to me, it's so rewarding to build something with your spouse, but we both got to have kind of, your specialties and what works. And, like you said, like she does a lot of the front end stuff for the weddings, that's good. Yeah.
Which me and Lori, I'd say, we have a lot of similarities to you guys, but we probably have a lot more differences than similarities with you guys. I see the way you guys work together, and it's like, that's awesome that you guys were able to build this, but me and her could never operate that way. Like, you guys are just bam, 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 nonstop making decisions. I don't even know if you think about them, you just do them. And we could never operate that way. Lori thinks about stuff way more than I do, but I'm pretty slow on decisions too. But yeah, we are very slow and.
Don't ever build a house, let me tell you.
Well, we're trying to remodel a house while living in it with 4 kids. And I get to work on that maybe 2 hours a day.
Right.
It's just the slowest process. But, anytime I get frustrated working on our farm, I'm like, dude, I got the best life ever.
Right. Absolutely.
I get to come in for lunch and help out. Even though my lunch breaks are an hour and a half sometimes, but who else gets to do that?
Right.
So it's really pretty awesome. And I just got to try to make up time elsewhere. I get up early in the morning and work and then come in. But yeah, it's a pretty sweet gig.
So last week I was in Dallas at Wind the Storm Roofing Conference, and Iron Cowboy, James Lawrence is his name. He done 50 Ironmans in 50 days in 50 states. And don't hold me to this, but an Ironman is a full marathon, a couple miles of swimming, and I don't even know how many miles of biking. 50, 50, 50.
I could do that.
But what I'm getting to is he said he was showing some footage in one of the races he did. He pulled a kid with him, and there was something wrong with the kid that couldn't walk. And he says every morning I wake up and I say I get to run my business or whatever that is. Not everybody can get up and go. Not everybody has a farm to go work on. Mm-hmm. You get to do that. You get to work with the team. You get to work with your wife. You get to be around your kids a lot. I don't think there's anybody that could disagree. The importance of having a father, having the parents that actually freaking love each other, and be around them a lot to influence them. When Rhett, our oldest, that was all during the COVID time, and Emily homeschooled him for 1 year, and he was at that weird break where it could be preschool, could be kindergarten, and a lot of that kind of all mingles together. And when he went to school, they wanted him to be in kindergarten. And like I said, he was in that where it could be kindergarten or first grade. And Emily felt like a failure. And I was like, honey, you're not a failure, A. B, you just got to spend another year, a lot of one-on-one time, a lot of time with him. You're not going to ever look up and be like, man, I really regret spending an entire year with Rhett, homeschooling them. So, that was one thing that I took away from his talk of just to enjoy it. And, you have the opportunity to take the boys out there with you or whatever, and teach them, or just, they're at the age now where they're just going to tear more shit up than they are, and we're like, oh my gosh, now we know where our dads are. We're so frustrated with us.
Yeah, it is. I don't get to bring them out as, up to this point, we haven't done a whole lot outside together in the shop. I am starting to bring them into the shop a little bit, but yeah, you don't get anything done. And it's more stressful than anything. But over the next few years, I'm hoping they can not necessarily work with me, but work, do things around me. Whether they're playing, but I still want them to be around me. And I don't know. I think that will help build our relationship. Someone told me the other day, which someone gave him this advice, and this was a friend of mine. He's got little kids too. And this guy told him that, the first 8 years, that's what you've got to build your relationship. From there on out, you're kind of just maintaining that relationship. But that first 8 years is where you really become tight. And I took a lot from that, and I'm trying to take that seriously. And I just want to spend as much time with them as I can, because, my parents, we're not close. We have a good relationship, but we're not close. And looking back, I'm not going to say they made mistakes, but I just want to do things a little bit differently and be closer with my kids, even though they're going to tear everything I do up.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Out at the new property, we've got a round barn out there, and it's got single pane glass in some of the windows. And guess what my son decided to do the other day? Chuck some rocks at them. So now we got broken glass.
Yeah, but you needed more projects.
Yes.
Yeah, but the Snapchats that you send me, a rat out there running the skid steer.
Right.
That's stuff that he's going to remember.
Oh, absolutely.
His life. So that's pretty awesome that you guys are able to do that.
Yeah, and and that's another thing. I get that we get that opportunity to raise our kids, around that. And I always say one thing that I'm trying to watch and be careful of is not forcing my hobbies and what I like down my kids' throats. Like I need to live my own life and not live through my kids, because it's funny. I just bought that skid loader, and one of the guys worked for me. He says he's going to start an excavating company for me. I was like, well, shit, Red will never help me on the roofing business because he loves running that mini and that skid loader. But I want him, to enjoy that. And I mean, I get it the same way with my dad. Like, I love my dad. I respect my dad. Because, I mean, I think all of us realize, like, how hard it is to be a parent, and I respect that my dad stepped up and raised us 3 older kids on his own, because I know how freaking hard it is to raise 3 kids with my wife that supports me. You know, I would not want to do that, right, as a single parent. So, wedding venue, and then, so the barn wood, you kind of started with tearing down barns, then you kind of went into just selling barn wood and making some things. Mm-hmm. And now you went to like a timber framing kind of school class.
Yeah. So I started the barn business. I used to work for the USDA, and in 2017 I quit and started the barn business. Had no clue what I was doing, but things work out for me. They always do. Even if I don't know it at the time. That's probably, I've had to change my mindset a lot. And even whenever like something doesn't happen the way I wanted it to, now I'm so much better at looking at it from like, well, there's a reason why that didn't happen, or, things are just going to work out the way they need to anyway. So, started the barn business, tearing down barns, sell material. And then we bought the other farm, and I started renovating that barn. So there was a time there where I was actually buying more barn wood from other people and then reselling it. I was a used barn wood salesman. That's what my wife calls me. It's like, how do you explain to people what you do? And and then now that we've kind of got our wedding business up and running and kind of flowing the way it needs to, I've been able to get into taking down barns again. But the timber framing is something that I really didn't have plans to do, but it always sounded cool. And then the first barn I did last year, it was January of 23. It was a really big barn up around Wilkinson, and it had it had a lot of issues with it, but it had some really good parts in it too. So I kind of modified it, made a smaller house frame out of it, and then I've sold that one. So it's going in southern Indiana this summer. And then I've got another one that I took down last year. I'm rebuilding it too. And what I like about, I've kind of tried to change my business model to where, I can take a barn down, bring it back to my place, work on it for months to clean it up, repairs, all that. And then I take it somewhere else and rebuild it to where I'm spending most of my time at home around the kids. Because the way I used to do stuff, I'd spend so much time, at a barn side or on the road. It's basically like any other job, and not being around my kids. So the way that I'm kind of operating now is, I guess, I didn't have a plan for it, but I'm glad that it's worked out this way.
So, are you going to rebuild? Are you going to put the timber frame up in southern Indiana?
Yep.
Okay. But
whenever you put just the frame up, you're looking at maybe a week or so.
Right.
So it's not, and actually that one I'm probably going to take the whole family down with me. So and that timber framing course that you mentioned, that was in Massachusetts. I took that almost 2 years ago, and took all the kids out there. And Lori, she's a saint. We rented a camper, and she stayed with them in that camper during the days. And I know she was pretty stressed out whenever I'd get back, but it was so much fun. And at that course, I realized this is what I want to do.
Right. No, I mean, that is awesome, because like the craftsmanship for that, like I don't near have the patience. Like where you're like, hey, you're real slow at, making decisions. I'm like, I don't even think about them, no, that's cool. Cause I mean, we've had some conversations about that. I can't believe it's been 2 years since you went to the class. Cause honestly, I feel like it was a freaking few months ago we were, chatting about you going to that. But that's cool. Cause you just, as business owners, like we have to adapt, and there's some things that we didn't necessarily plan on doing a year ago or 6 months ago or 2 years ago that, it just kind of, comes about. Yeah. And,
I think some people are really set on having a like, a 5-year plan sort of thing. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it just doesn't work for me, especially for this business, because I don't know what the hell I'm going to be doing, 2 years from now. Who knows? The barns are eventually going to run out, so I've either got to, do traditional timber framing from new materials or but the problem with that is there's so many people around the country you can buy kits from, and the profit margins aren't nearly as good. But with the barns, there's not nearly as many people that can do that because it is a massive puzzle, and you kind of got to reverse engineer a lot of stuff, and I that's what I really like about it. But yeah, so who knows what I'll be doing in 2 years.
So with the timber frame on like the houses and stuff, like is the goal on them like the interior? Are they keeping exposed beams on some of that stuff? Or
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So they want it to look like one frame that I'm doing, the really big one. It's going pretty close to my house. That one there, they want it to look like an old barn on the inside for the most part. So everything will be exposed and have a wood ceiling, and but the other one will be more of I guess modern farmhouse look with exposed beams. But
so like if they're exposed wood on the barn, are they running like we're building a house right now, so like some of this stuff is like. So is the electrical all outside the wall, or is it still in the wall?
So they're basically going to build a frame around it. They'll stick frame around the timber frame, and then they'll run all the electrical and stuff through those walls.
Okay.
Yeah. But there's some other options you can do, SIP panels, structurally insulated panels. But I've talked to a lot of people about this. With barn frames, those are a little bit more of a challenge because with the barn frame, nothing is square, So it's better to almost stick frame up around it. It's a little bit easier.
So, no, that's like I said, like that true craftsmanship's like something that you totally have the patience for, because you built a barn there on your facility, right?
Yeah.
Now, was that out of just rough sawed wood or?
No, that was it was a barn that was built in Wilkinson in 2005. So it was all modern material.
Okay.
And I bought this barn from these people during COVID when lumber prices were super high, and I took it down, and then I took another barn down at our property because I wanted a new one to go in that location. So I took the parts and pieces from both and built a new one. Now, if you were to ask me to do that today, I'd say no way, because it kind of sucked. But with the prices the way they were, it made sense at the time.
Right.
But yeah, and it's pretty much just built with used wood and stuff I bought off of Facebook Marketplace. Yeah, that's just, I don't know. Sometimes I do stuff like that was pretty stupid. Most of the time I do stuff, it's like, yeah, it was pretty stupid. But every once in a while I do something that works out.
So, all right, on that subject, let's like as an entrepreneur, and it doesn't have to be in the wedding venue. It doesn't have to be even in the wood, the barn wood stuff. Like, what's the dumbest thing that you did, but maybe you learned the biggest lesson?
Dumbest thing that I did, man. I really try to block a lot of these things out, because if you just think about them forever, you're just going to get depressed. But so whenever we were doing our septic system at our barn, it was that was the spring before our twin boys were born, and I was kind of under the gun to get it done, and I did the install all myself. I've never done that before, and a new septic tank was dropped off, and I didn't realize that whenever they bring these trucks in to drop these tanks off, that you're supposed to have them set the tank in the hole. And I just said, drop it off over there. My telehandler can pick it up. I can do it myself. And turns out my telehandler could only lift it about that far off the ground. And I didn't have my chains rigged up the right way. And as I was trying to set it, I just see this hairline crack go up the tank. So yeah, that was $1,000 tank. And then me and Caroline just took an excavator and started whacking it and, broke it into a million pieces. But if you think about what if I would have paid someone to do all that, $1,000 is nothing. So
did you have them set the second one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's
funny because I didn't even know that. I didn't even know. I mean, like I said, we talked a lot, so I will share one. So when I was still selling for another company, me and them, we were starting to flip houses, and I decided I would get in like property. I don't know the correct terminology. It's for all the repoed houses, okay? And they don't pay squat on that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I had decided to take this territory, okay? And the first freaking place they sent me, somehow like the southern part of the territory is down closer to your old stomping grounds, but it was down by off of 65, south of Seymour. Anyways, it was like an hour and 27 minutes. And I'm pretty certain, Rhett he was a baby. He was still in a pumpkin seat. And we go down there, and there's like a tarp to put on the roof. There's like gutters to clean. And you're going to laugh when I say this. There's shit to clean out of the toilet, okay? And so we get down there, and I'm like, we're looking at a couple things. And then I called the lady, and I was like, okay, what about this and this? And with a straight face, she's like, well, there's a fecal removal in there to do, and it pays $7. And like
$7 a turd, or for $7 a turd, I'd probably do it. Just saying, money's money, guys.
Yeah. So,
well, that's where you chop it up, Adam.
So,
divide that into thirds. That's $21.
So the problem is there's no water been on these properties for a long time because they're winterized, and I literally, we were driving, I believe, did Emily still have that Ford Escape, or did we have the minivan then? I was like, all right, I'm done. Like, I called the lady. I was like, I've never just quit on somebody, but I was like, this just, and she's like, why? And I was like, first of all, it's like an hour and a half from my house, so like, if there's a day that like we're just at our wits end, and me and them were like, why in the hell are we doing this? Which them days are more often than a lot of people know. We just like, one of us will be like, we could always go do that fecal removal for $7, and it's so funny because like people will look and see like the barn venue that you guys have built, and it's freaking gorgeous. And I mean, I don't even know half the freaking work that you've done, but I know a lot of it, and I know how much time and effort that you put in there, and people see what you're building, and they just kind of act like it happened last night, and they don't know that you bought 2 septic tanks and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So when was that when did you buy that septic tank for $1,000?
It was concrete. It's about 1,000 gallons, and that was 2021.
Jeez, my peas.
How much are they now?
I swear, after the price increase for January 1, they were over $3,000.
Well, I still got the pieces in a ditch. If you want to go dig them out, we can glue it back together.
Glue it back together. I'm surprised you didn't do that.
I thought about it. I really thought about trying to seal that thing, but I know we're gonna have poop seepage in our water, and I don't want that.
I mean, I'm sure you were Googling like how to seal a concrete or what.
No, I didn't even attempt. I really didn't even think about it. The thought crossed my mind briefly, but it's like I want to do everything right.
Right.
And our septic, that's I try to do everything right, especially if it's not on my own house. My own house, I'll cut some corners here and there. But whenever it's something that other people are going to be using, and everything's being inspected and all that, like I have really good luck with all of my, county inspectors and stuff like that, because they know I'm not going to half-ass.
Right.
And that was a shitty day.
So
pun intended.
Yeah, pun intended. Because I'll never forget the day you called me and you were going to go buy them mobile toilets.
Those suck. Yeah, that was another thing I did. I wish I never would have. I bought some mobile toilets, and it was a toilet trailer, and Lori was pregnant, and
shocker,
on the way back,
she's only been pregnant more time than she hasn't in the last 5 years.
It was with our first pregnancy, and we were on the interstate. The tire blew out, and it was about 100 degrees that day, and she was so hungry. Like, she had this crazy look in her eye, but it's like kind of got. We still talk about this to this day. We broke down, but the flat tire was on the north side of the trailer, and the sun was coming, from the south, or I guess above us. So we had a little bit of shade. I'm like, well, it could be worse. This is really the best situation for being broken down because we got this nice pool off here, and it's just trying to put a spin on shitty situations, and that's what you got to do when you're a business owner because sometimes things can really suck, But
did you have air conditioning that worked in the truck?
What year was that? I'm gonna say no, because most of my trucks don't have AC in them.
Does your new one?
It does. Yeah, I was gonna show that to you. It's pretty cool. You can just turn a knob and it gets cold, and you turn another knob and it gets hot. It's really revolutionary.
So I always got to tell the story about how cheap heaven is. Okay, so we go to Haiti on a mission trip. This is when Emily's pregnant with Rhett. He'll be 9 here in May. So 9 is pretty much 9 years ago.
Well, no. It was, you're thinking of your first mission trip.
Okay.
The second one, Emily didn't go
Okay.
on.
So that'd be 7 years ago.
2007, February 2017.
So, yes, I stand corrected. Yes, 7 years ago. And, we stayed at this compound in Haiti, and it was safe, good food, clean water, and all that. And we get up and we had breakfast at the compound. We go to the airport. I didn't eat at the Haiti airport either. Just the food just kind of seemed a little sketchy. And then we land in Atlanta, and I've been gone for a week, haven't eaten American food, and friggin' Evan is so tight that he waits not until he gets back to Indianapolis. He waits till he gets freaking home to eat. And I'll never forget that somebody had some food they weren't going to eat. And they're like, do you want this before I throw it away? And you're like, and I'll never forget you said this. You're like, are you offering it because you're literally going to throw it away and you don't want to waste it? Or you feel bad for me? Because you're like, I'm not taking it if you feel bad for me. And they're like, no, I'm literally going to throw it away. And you're like, okay, I'll eat it. So,
well, everyone thinks that, especially whenever we worked for the USDA, we were in these offices with all these basically mothers,
right?
And they tried to mother me, and everyone felt so sorry for me. It's like, I've got money, I can buy food, I just choose not to.
Yeah, because man, there was another one that popped in my head to tell stories about you, and then I lost it there. But
well, I got a story about you.
What's that?
So, do you remember the first time we met?
At the gym
at the Anytime Fitness in Rushville? And you were, I knew that you and Emily were probably close in age, and I had just moved to town, so I didn't know anybody. And it's like, I don't know, maybe I could be friends with this guy. And I saw he had a Dave Ramsey keychain. Like, I'm going to talk to him about that, because I was really into Dave Ramsey at the time and trying to pay off my debt and everything. And so I brought it up, and I don't know, it was small talk, but it was like the smallest small talk you've ever seen. And didn't go very far, and afterwards I thought, he just doesn't like to talk. I don't know, he's just a quiet guy. Oh man,
that was full of shit.
Yeah, I was so off base on that one. You never shut up. That's what I learned. But I guess you're just really, in the zone at the gym.
I guess it was just, that was pre-kids for us, and that's when me and Emily had 8 to 5 jobs pretty much. So yeah, we both went in there. My job had some flexibility on start time, and she'd go to work, I'd go to work, and maybe it was just too early in the morning.
I don't know. You were kind of a dick. Yeah. You weren't a dick, but you were a little standoffish. I'm like, all right, I'm not going to be friends with him. And then we started going to church. Once me and Lori got married, we started going to church together, and then I realized that this guy never shuts up. But another funny story about the gym. This one. Poor Emily.
This is I remember this.
Yeah, one. So I would come from home, go to the gym, take a shower at the gym, go to my job. That way I didn't have to go back home and waste 40 minutes. So
or $2 in gas.
Exactly. So I would use the same towel every day to take my shower, and I would just throw it on the back seat of my car. And eventually it would dry out. I'd use it the next day, and it would stay in there for, this is like my bachelor season of my life, so it would stay in there for a while. And there was one day I was walking in and I dropped my towel and I didn't realize it. And then I get in the building and I'm starting to work out and stuff. Emily comes up behind me and says, "Here, you dropped this." She was holding my super disgusting towel that hadn't been washed in probably a month. And I tried everything with it, Bob. Her poor little hands were on that.
And now we have kids, so it doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was like, oh my God, you touched that. I didn't tell her that. I didn't tell her where it had been. But
yeah, no, that's ironic because I was just talking to somebody else today about like Dave Ramsey and like that cult following that Dave Ramsey has, but yeah, I do remember that keychain thing that I had on my work truck. So and that's been another thing that I always tease you until you can spend a little more money, but that is, there's a lot of similarities, and especially when you start a freaking business, of like, you got to be frugal and cheap and, make the decision. That's why I teased you when you sent me that Snapchat of your truck. I'm like, did you really buy that new of a truck? So
it only has 145,000 miles on it.
There you go.
Yeah. And really, I've always been cheap my whole life, but I didn't really have a plan for my cheapness, and I wasn't really keeping track of stuff. But whenever I met Lori, she was keeping her gas receipts and keeping track of how much she spent every month in gas and all this. I'm like, what are you doing? And she told me, and so I started doing it.
Okay.
And I get really into Excel spreadsheets, so I made a spreadsheet. I still have it from the first 3 years I was doing this, and I knew exactly how much I spent on gas. And then that turned into my budget. I started making spreadsheets for my budget, and then that turned into spreadsheets for my business. And there's, I don't know, that behavior just kind of, it really helped. And really Lori was the one that set me on that path. So she's just as cheap as I am.
Well, and that's hilarious, because I always tell the story when me and Emily were doing our debt-free journey. We tried to cut everything out that we could. And I remember it seemed like about every 4 to 6 weeks there would be a conversation that wasn't necessarily positive. And a lot of times she's like, oh, you'll never let me spend money again, because I love my wife and she's an amazing woman. But that woman buys more freaking anti-cream, moisturizer, and lotion than anybody is known to man. I'll be like, I swear we bought that last week. It's $18 for a tube of that, So, but I tease her every once in a while. I was like, remember when you used to get mad at me? And and she was. It's ironic because Emily is cheap also. And then, every once in a while, I just tell her, I was like, get your white trash roots out of you. That is no, we're not doing that, So, but yeah, it's good. The worst part for me is, if I go buy a piece of equipment, now if she spends $40 on this or $60 on that, that's fine. But I can go spend $30,000 in a half of a blink of an eye, know. So yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure it's the same for you. Is whenever you are super cheap like that, you want to do everything yourself, and so as you're trying to build your business, sometimes you need to hire some people to come in and do things. Whether it's so you can work on your business and they can work on your house, right.
that sort of thing. And we have a really hard time doing that. And it's like we've gotten better. We will hire some people to do some things, but it's like if I could, spend 2 hours doing something I'm good at and hire someone else to do this, it's worth it. And
that's really the secret of growing the business is getting out of our own way, realizing that somebody else is better, at doing that or doing this. One thing I struggle with is making sure that that we're on the same wavelength of expectations. Adam behind the mic, behind the camera here, I gave him this vision of a podcast. And I reached out to a good buddy of mine, Ty Backer, and I said, what do you have for your podcast? He sent me a list. I sent it to Adam. I said, let's get it ordered. And 2 days later, 90% of this stuff was sitting here, So that's been big. But we were actually kind of talking about this earlier. You asked me what my hobbies were because I was talking about making a barn into a man cave, and I told you more work. And, I'm GCing building the house and trying to keep the sales team, helping them out. They're good. And saying, keeping an eye on marketing and, all that kind of stuff. But look back, if I was smarter, I would have just hired a true project manager to stay out there and make the decisions literally yesterday I dug the buried tile underneath in the ground for the gutters. And then the concrete guy showed up today because my wife wants to add more at sidewalks to the side of the house. She wants enough concrete to park 4 trucks on, I think, out front of her garage, you know. So she just doubled my concrete bill. But that's okay. So, but yeah, I mean, that's, yeah, at the end of the day, like, we got to get better. You know, I was proud of you. You called me that one day and you hired some help to do some demoing. Maybe it was tearing down a barn or something.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah, I hadn't had help on a barn since I first started doing this. And then this last one I did, it was just, everything had to go in a dumpster, and it was too much for one person to do. So, yeah, it made everything so much easier. And my problem is I'm not a very good manager of people. I'm terrible at it. Like, I look at you and how you're able to, I know you've got headaches here and there from stuff, but I'm not good at setting expectations, and just, I don't know, I like working alone, and I feel like if I hire a bunch of people, then I'm spending all my time telling them what to do instead of doing what I want to do.
Right.
And why I did all this is so we can do what we want to do. Mm-hmm. And if I get to the point to where, like, right now I enjoy every day.
Right.
And not many people can say that. I don't, whenever I had a real job, you work for the weekends, right? And that's how everybody was. But I don't look forward to anything now, and I say that in a positive way, because every day is fun for me, and there's nothing. It's like, man, I can't wait until this.
Right.
It's like I'm not going to wish time away. For one, I need every minute of it, and two, it's just, I don't know. I'm really enjoying where we're at with our businesses right now. I feel like we got things rolling, and things are finally, really coming together, and I think that's a good measure of success, that you aren't, I don't know, that's how I measure my success, is not really by money so much, but just by enjoying everything that I do. And that was the whole point of everything we did, was we didn't want to hate our jobs. So.
Well, and I mean, I'm the same way. Like, I joke and say I never know what day it is, but, like, you're right. Like, I don't want it to be like, and I don't want anybody that works for me to look forward to Saturday. Like, I genuinely want them to look forward to Monday. Like, yes, everybody needs a break. I get it. Not everybody can run 24/7. Like,
you should probably give them Monday off.
Yeah, probably give them Monday off. Yeah, so they look forward to it. But I genuinely, like, want to build that culture, and I mean, absolutely, like, the definition of success in society is, look like you have something and look like you have your life together. And I mean, I love Facebook and I hate Facebook, because most of the time it's a highlight reel, where it's like, I always joke and say I'm going to hire Adam to follow me around and Emily around and the kids around, like, to show people, like, what it's really like to run a business with your spouse, like, whatever that looks like, show up to a job site and Reagan's got to go potty, or whatever that is, and just, 3 people are supposed to be there, 1 shows up, or, fortunately, building the house, the crews have been responsive, showed up when they're supposed to. But over the weekend, we had electrical, HVAC, and interior framing out there. Today, right now, we've got siding, interior framing, and concrete. So, like, there's always something, moving there. So, but yeah, that's I mean, it's life, and, like, to enjoy it, like, genuinely, like, a friend of mine said that life is to be lived, or you live in life. And you made a good point. You're like, you don't want to wish any time away. And that's one thing that I try to promise myself, that I wasn't going to wish any of the kids any of that phases growing up. Mm-hmm. Like, am I glad we're out of the diaper phase? Absolutely. But I don't want to wish, I mean, Rhett will be, you just sat there and said that 8 years. Like, Rhett turns 9 in 2 months. Like, and then we're building this house, and we've been in our last house 5.5 years. And he asked Emily the other day, will this be the last house I live in until I move out? And Emily's like, I hope so.
But have you met your father? He's probably already got the thing on the market.
Somebody give me enough money, I'll sell it. But no, I mean, and I even said that to Rhett this weekend. We were talking about it. I said, did you realize here in a couple of weeks, you're halfway done of living on me paying your bills?
Yeah, it's it flies by.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But yeah, and there's a difference also, and like I don't know, there are some days where it's like, get these kids away from me.
Yeah.
But there's a difference in wishing time away and just wishing they were at grandma's for the day. There's a lot of days like, man, I can't wait for that grandma day to
Right.
keep up. But yeah, it's, I don't know. I'm just really pleased with where we are at in our life. You know, nothing's done. Everything's a wreck. Everything's chaos. Our house is years away from being done, but I mean, who cares?
Right.
You know, just enjoy it.
Yep.
And, you know, try to keep them alive. And I don't know.
Yeah. Speaking of grandma, at least you got one. Your mother-in-law's right down the road, so
Yeah, that helps out a lot.
pretty soon, if you could buy them just a little like moped to ride down there, then you wouldn't even have to take them.
Dude. They have like a 4-seater? Yeah. Golf cart. We'll just get a golf cart. There you go.
I figured you're kind of tight, so I figured.
Oh, it's going to be a well-worn golf cart. That thing's going to, it's going to be ragged out.
It's funny you say that. Our girls were with my in-laws this weekend. We took Rhett to a concert on Friday. And that's something else that we're trying to be super intentional about is experiences with them. And, you know, and it was pretty cool yesterday afternoon. So on our back porch, you'll see the back pasture, or, you know, you'll see the back side of the pasture. And I looked out there, and we had 2 baby calves born last week or the week before. And Rex is literally just sitting in the backyard, just watching the cows. And, like, I don't know, there's just, in my opinion, there's so much value in them growing up on the farm or just room to run and play. Like, our kids probably couldn't even turn a tablet on. Like, genuinely, I mean that. Like, I mean, they're always, you know, dirt. Literally, I was taking clothes out of the dryer last night, and I swear there was a half a pound of gravel in the freaking dryer. And I was like, gosh damn it, Rhett. Like, I literally said that out loud. And then I start laughing at myself. I'm like, he is, you know, he's all boy. And that's just, I don't know. I think you see the same value, you know, just, you know, you guys are, Lori's like the flower queen of Hancock County. So Caroline seems to like flowers too. And, you know.
Yeah. And, you know, we have to explain to Caroline that, like, not everyone gets to live like this.
Yep.
You know, other kids, most kids don't have a farm. And they really, I think that they really enjoy it. And I hope that they have fond memories of growing up there. But that was always kind of the goal, even back before we had kids, was to buy a farm and raise kids on it. So we're not really doing much. You know, we raise cattle, and I help my in-laws farm some. But we're not really that tied to agriculture now, especially with the cows. Like, I wish I could just sell them. I want to sell them, but then I think I want my kids to be around this, so we keep them, and I waste my time with them. Same reason, you know.
You know, I'm actually kind of disappointed, so we got to tell this story. So I used to have to go over and help you cut bull calves once a year, and he hasn't called me in a while. And I wasn't even trying to charge the guy. He would always give me a call over his gift card, because that's another thing that our families have in common. But yeah, so if you don't know what cutting bull calves are, it's castrating male.
It's disgusting. It's awful.
And I guess I so look forward to actually doing the cutting, because growing up, I was in there holding the tail for my dad, and I always thought, man, he's got the easy job, you know, so.
You're the one that would get kicked in the face, though.
Yeah,
you know, doing the cutting. But, I'll hold the tail all day and just, that's gross. I don't see how you do that. Disgusting. No, we banned them now.
There you go. There you go. We had them 2 born, but that one mama cow was, I looked at her calf, and she looked at me like, you get any closer, we're going to have a problem. I'm like, okay, you just, you know, you do your thing. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I was going to ask you if you still had your cows, because I knew that not that long ago we were chatting back and forth, and
well, it's just a time thing. You know, once the kids get older and they can go out there. You know, they're able to all walk through the tall grass, you know, and go out there and do stuff with me. I look forward to that. But right now, I've pretty much neglected my cows and make sure they're fed, and that's about it.
So are you still selling freezer beef?
We are, but we kind of downsized the herd last year, just trying to get the genetics where we want it to be to finish them out, you know, within a reasonable time, because we're 100% grass, so they don't finish, you know, nearly as quick as they are on grain. But yeah, so this next year we won't have any beef to sell, which I'm actually kind of glad. That way, it's one less thing I got to do, and we'll have one in 2025, and you know, after that we'll start building the herd back up, but it's going to be a little while. But again, I need a break, so I don't mind it.
So grass-fed freezer beef when he has some, wedding venue. Now, are you still doing anything with barnwood, or just mainly doing the timber frame?
I do have some barnwood for sale. I still sell beams.
Okay.
I sell a lot for mantles and things like that, interior house beams and stuff. You know, so if you know anyone that has a house and they're willing to spend a bunch of money, send them my way. But yeah, I'm trying to get out of selling the barnwood and then just do more of the timber framing side of stuff.
Right. So now I want to add something unique to our house, and I know I texted you the other day, and you pretty much told me that I'm always in a big hurry. And
I told you that my wife would be really pissed off if I was working on your house instead of my house.
But one thing that I would like to do on the property we bought, and this is just totally a brainstorm random idea, which is pretty common for me. I've got that round barn. I don't know how to incorporate putting something in the house to kind of, I don't want to say reflect that or something, but you know.
Is in you want something in the house that has that feel. I don't know. I'm not an interior designer.
Okay.
I just do the cutting and demolishing, but I'm not that smart. A lot of people ask me for interior design questions. It's like, I don't even know what matches. You know, I wear black with brown all the time. So.
Well, and I'm trying to think, the hayloft and the round barn, it's newer. Like it's been redone, and heck, honestly, it needs redone again. But my vision on that is the downstairs part be a man cave, hangout area, and the upstairs end up putting an office up there.
Mm-hmm. Are you going to keep that floor in there, or are you going to put something else in there?
I honestly think I need to look at. I don't even go up there because the staircase is so sketchy. I think I've been up there once. Now my kids run up there a bunch. There's loose straw up there. Mm-hmm. If I could take the old floor out and it was like really older, like I would reuse it. But I think we're gonna have to reframe. I think what makes sense is to lift it up a little bit to give more head space down below, especially if I add new concrete and finish out the inside.
What you could do is just have me come out and tear it down and keep it for myself.
Yeah, that was funny because so many people were so worried if I was going to tear it down. And Emily's like, I will not allow you. I was like, I'll just swing it with a mini excavator and knock it down in about 2 minutes just to get the neighborhood to talk. And she's like, you will not. I was like, I would. And she goes, oh, I know you would. So, yeah, I don't think she's gonna allow that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, those round barns, there's quite I don't know, there's probably a handful in Rush County, isn't there?
For some reason, I thought somebody said there's two. Somebody on Facebook will send me. I need to join the Round Barn like Facebook group. Are you?
Yeah. The biggest one in Indiana is 4 miles north of us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it got hit with one of those by a tornado last year.
Okay.
And they've had someone come in and fix the foundation on it. But yeah, they're cool. But I deal with the timber frame, hand hewn mortise and tenon barns. Those round barns were built, all within the 1900s, and they're using rough cut 2x6s, 8s, 10s, that sort of thing.
Right.
But what I like about the timber frame stuff is it is a lot bigger pieces and harder to work with. But really, when you think about it, there's not that many pieces, and you're not dealing with pulling the nails and all that as you would with I know of people that have rebuilt round barns, and there's got to be a shit ton of nails to pull on those. So it's a little bit easier with dealing with the older ones.
Well, and what I thought about doing, and this may make like somebody cringe, is just put metal siding on the outside of it. Like make it so I don't have to worry about it. For my kids don't have to worry about it. Like I understand that may
doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it's yours. And really you're protecting it for
correct
years and years to come. So
right.
Everyone is going to complain about whatever you do, no matter what, is what I've learned. So
yes,
if it's your own shit, just if you really wanted to have a say in this, you should have bought it.
Yep.
That's how I feel about it.
That's what I almost told one person that was all worried if I was going to tear it down. Right. I was like, well, it is my property now.
Right. And whenever I'm taking down barns, people come by like, I hate to see this go. It's like, okay, well you should have came and done all the repairs to it.
Right.
That sort of thing. And, or you should be, if I'm throwing pieces away that, like, I've taken down barns before where, people get upset because there's stuff that I'm throwing away that, it might work good for their little art project, but I'm running a business and I need a lot of consistent material, the same links, that sort of stuff. And I can't keep everything. When I first started it, I tried keeping everything and I ended up throwing a lot of it away or giving it away. Burning it down the road because it took up too much space. And like barn doors, people are always asking about barn doors. I don't even keep them anymore because everyone always wants a certain size, to fit their specific door. So that was a big learning curve with all that, is figuring out where I can make money. And a lot of people think that their barns are worth $1 million, with barnwood builders and all that, but they don't know what all goes into it. And it's just trying to figure out where you can make money and what you're good at.
Well, and it was probably, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago. I feel like that was like really, really, really the fad of like, and like people forget that it costs a lot of money and labor, and you got to have equipment, and you got to have a truck, you got to have a trailer to haul that stuff. Where, like you said, like they think their barn's worth a lot of money, and it's probably a lot of times it's not really even worth. I mean, how many barns did you tear down that they weren't worth tearing down?
A couple when I first got started. Yeah.
I remember that. I remember like 6 months in, you're like, all right, I'm going to start getting pickier on what barn I'm tearing down. I just started laughing because it's business, man. You learn,
Yeah. There was one barn that I did within that first year. I ended up burning so much of that material because I didn't realize that everybody wanted the old hand-hewn beams as opposed to the circular sawn beams. And the circular sawn ones, there's so many of those barns out there left. The market is really saturated. And I pretty much only do stuff if it's hand-hewn. That's older, pre-1880s. But, just had to learn a lot of things the hard way. Make a lot of stupid decisions.
Round barns. So when were them roughly built?
After the 1900s, I believe most. I'm not an expert on round barns, but just whenever you transition from the hand-hewn barns to the circular sawn barns, that was around the, I believe, 1880s.
Okay.
And then the round barns, I'm guessing probably somewhere between like 1910 and 1940s, somewhere in there, maybe 50s. But yeah, did you hear about that guy that died in that round barn over there in Shelby County?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, you didn't hear about that?
I did not.
The guy died because he couldn't find a corner to shit in.
So I was actually going to say, if you could find a corner to pee in, you could come and tear my round barn down, but I didn't. So here I thought for certain, you were taking that angle of that young, I shouldn't be laughing as I say this, that young man that died down.
Versailles State Park.
Versailles.
Yeah, that's terrible.
I mean, just because I know you're an avid outdoorsman, I know you and Lori went to like California and did a long vacation and, slept in a car a couple nights because you're too cheap for a hotel, but yeah, that's sad for a kid to be that, Yeah, enjoy the outdoors like that. And, I've seen some of his pictures and man, he took some gorgeous shots. Mm-hmm. So, but you're just. man. So, all right. Well, with that joke, we're going to start wrapping up. Do you have any more, any word of advice, anything else to add,
I mean, just like I said before, just especially trying to run a business, changing your mindset and, not focusing on other people's success and instead, encouraging them and congratulating them on their successes, because jealousy isn't going to get you anywhere. And then just trying to spin everything positive. It's okay to have days where things don't go the way you want it and you're a little down or whatever, but you can't be like that forever, or you won't succeed. So, just trying to look at things like, it didn't work out today, but it will in the future. So that would probably be my advice to anyone trying to start their own business.
Right. Or just living life, man. Like, I mean, genuinely, enjoy it. Look for the good in it. I mean, I can make your head spin and cry with, some of the stuff that, we deal with, on a semi-regular basis, and you just got to learn from it.
I bet you make a lot of stupid decisions.
I made a lot of stupid decisions.
I've met you.
I mean, just think how good of a sales guy I was for the wife I landed, though, So.
I don't know how you pulled that off. Some sort of drugs had to be involved. But talking about how you got into this, just talking about you a little bit, I remember, when we first met, you were kind of going from job to job. And, at that time I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do too. And then I started doing my self-employment thing a little bit before you did. Mm-hmm. And I remember telling you, like, I don't know why you're doing this. I mean, if there's anyone that can do this, it's you. Yep. And I think, you just needed to be self-employed and have your, I don't know, just be able to run,
Well, and I mean, what I'd been in, and I'll tell this story, like I'd been in environmental consulting, I kind of just fell into it, and I, listening to Dave Ramsey a lot, like, he talks about being intentional, and I was like, I don't want to look up in 10 more years and still be doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. The worst part about the environmental stuff I was in, it was so contract driven that, contracts changed every year, every 2 years for these big oil companies. So literally we'd have a bunch of work or no work. And absolutely. And kind of like what you said, like to encourage people, because you guys having success in a wedding venue or doing timber framing has no effect on the whole roofing and remodeling at all. And either other construction companies, really, there's not that much. I mean, like, I can be happy for another contractor having success, and not be jealous, not be envy, like, try to learn, like, because you're going through the same stuff that I'm going through. Like, is it team members? Is it, not clearly communicating to the wedding staff of, we got to do these 7 steps. You said it early, systems. Like, I hate, my biggest problem was I didn't want to be corporate with owning my own business. That's why I started my own damn business, because I didn't want you to tell me what to do. However, the more you grow, the more you realize, okay, there has to be some steps and systems and processes, or, Adam doesn't know what he's supposed to do every Monday. And then every Monday, I'm like, Adam, what are you doing? Like, now I don't have to ask that question. Like, we sit down, we put a plan together and go. So, but no, I actually, now you say that, I remember you saying that, because I got into selling roofing, and I always knew I wanted to own my own business. I just didn't really know what it was. And we had considered me, and then we talked about doing like the environmental consulting stuff, but my heart wasn't. It was a paycheck, man. Like, I would always work. I would never complain about going to work on Monday, but I was always ready to get home and play cattle farmer or hay farmer, So I always had that entrepreneur spirit. And I love my dad and appreciate my dad, but he always encouraged me to have an 8 to 5 and have, before side hustles were cool, have a side hustle. Mm-hmm. And, then I just realized that I wasn't made to take orders from.
Yeah. And I could see that, because you were, I mean, in the short time that I had known you, you were in probably like 3 or 4 different jobs. And it had nothing to do with, some people just can't hold a job. Right. You were the complete opposite. You're just a go-getter. You're on the go all the time. Right. and you just needed to basically do your own thing to channel all that energy.
Well, I'll never forget my aunt when I told my aunt that helped raise me that I was going to start my own company. She's like, I'm kind of concerned because you get bored very easy. And I was like, yes. However, I plan on growing it enough that I'll never get bored. When I get bored with something now, I can just delegate it to Adam, or I can delegate it to Ellie, or I can delegate it to the sales guys. So, but yeah, no, absolutely. But no, Evan, I appreciate our friendship. I know we don't see each other near, just with craziness.
You never take me a call first.
Yeah. So he's calling me out here on that. I guess you haven't invited me over to cut a bull lately.
That's true.
But no, I appreciate you coming in, sitting down, chatting with us. If you need a place to get married in and around Greenfield, give them a call. If you want, a timber frame, give the guy a call, and he's still got some barn wood. And I know you said kind of in the slower season, which there really is none of them anymore, that you'll work on some side projects and whatnot.
Oh,
so
yeah, I've gotten to the point now where I pretty much only work on things that I really like to do,
right.
which was the goal the entire time, because my time is so limited now that I just try to do what makes me happy and hang out with the kids.
Yep.
So, I don't have a lot of time like your door for your house. I'm not doing that. Unless you can wait till next winter, which I know you can't, because it'll need to be done next week.
Yeah. I mean, maybe 3 weeks, but yeah. But no, if Evan can help you guys out, go support another local business. Give them a like and follow on Facebook. And appreciate you coming in. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.